connecting to the server. Oh, it's recording.
There we go.
We are recording.
Right. So if you don't get your fill today, well, we will put these recordings out on our collateral landing page under the Resources tab. So if you find them beneficial, want to share that information with others within your shop, you'll know where to direct them to.
Yes.
So today is the collateral reporting and lending values. We're very happy to have you all with us this afternoon, and let's get started. So I'm Elaine Shoemaker. I've been with the bank since, 1987. That seems so long ago.
Blink.
Yeah, it is, just a blink. Again, had multiple positions within the bank, but most recent is the financial services manager. I've been doing this job for the last 20 years. Financial services is the safekeeping services as well as the collateral operations piece of that. So all of you that report via QCD FORM, pledging securities, or delivered loans even, all of that goes through financial services.
Yes, which is what we're going to talk about today.
We are.
The Elaine Show today. Hey, everybody, it's Kylie Mergen. I'm the Director of Financial Services. I've been at the bank 12 years. I actually started as a collateral review analyst. We call them collateral review officers now. They come out and perform on-site collateral verifications. And then I managed that team for quite a while. And then in 2017, I moved to the Director of Financial Services position, and I now oversee both the safekeeping and collateral operations, so Elaine's team, and then also the collateral review team. I still have that one.
Mm-hmm.
Just one housekeeping item before we get started with the agenda and goals for the day. If you would like to communicate with us, we do have you all on mute, so I'm sorry about that. But if you would like to communicate with us, you can use either the chat or Q&A function, and we will try to respond throughout the webinar to any questions that you may have that pop up.
Okay. So our goals for today is we want you to have an understanding of what is changed in our member products and services guide that will go into effect yet this fall. We want to help you understand the lending value process that we go through every year. We'll go through how to report collateral through all of the various different asset types, how to get collateral back once it's been released, send back to your institution, and as well as we're going to cover some of the available reports you'll find. So the agenda today, we're first going to go over our lending value process and give you an update on new lending values, so changes that we will have coming up. We're also going to give you any member product policy changes, so changes that we recently adopted with our board. And then we're going to walk through, we'll probably spend the majority of our time walking through submitting a qualifying collateral determination or QCD form. Hopefully that term isn't foreign to you, but if it is, then this will be a wonderful learning experience for you. We're also going to quickly run through pledging and releasing delivered assets, and then also give you an update on our collateral reports. And finally, we'll have a question and answer session at the end. So if you want to hold your questions till then, that's great. If you'd like to ask them during, if they fit in, then we'll certainly try to get them in. Cover them, when we're there. All right. So the lending value process, this is something we go through every year. It takes us probably 2 to 3 months to go through this. We look at all of the different asset classes that we offer as collateral options. Each of those asset categories consists of 3 different components. One is the credit factor. This really is the asset quality over a 9-year look back. We look at the historical performance, and then we also look forward at the delinquency trends in our 4-state area. We have a volatility factor. So this really is just a 12-month look back in the movement in price for each of those asset categories. And then there's the liquidation factor. This really just relates to how easy would it be to liquidate the collateral had we ever had to take possession of that collateral. We also look at what kind of risks are involved. Fortunately, we've never ever had to do that in our
70, 80 years
That was me knocking on wood.
Yes, yes. Of operation, but by regulation, we have to be able to prove that we can do that. So we went through our lending value process. It started in June. It went to our board about a week and a half ago, and it was approved on September 20th. We have multiple lending value changes that we'll kind of highlight here in just a minute, but any securities, lending value changes, as well as any loans that are actually delivered to us and held in our vault, those lending value changes will go into effect on November 1st. If you're reporting collateral via the QCD form, because that data is as of 9/30, this next QCD form, the one that the window that opened today, the changes to the underwriting guidelines and the lending value changes don't go into effect until you submit your 12/31 QCD form. So the lending value changes, I think the biggest, there's three that really probably will impact the majority of the people. One of them is our 1 to 4 family, conventional and interest only. That is going from a 81% down to the conventional, 81% down to 78. And then the interest only, help me out, Kylie, it's 75 down to 72.
Yes.
So I think that asset category actually probably affects 97% of our population.
Mm-hmm.
The reason for that is more in the volatility factor. The volatility factor increased because of the interest rate fluctuations that we've seen. So it created a bigger variance in price. So that volatility factor increased, which then lowers the lending value percent assigned to that asset category. So another one is the held for sale assets. So if you're reporting held for sale on the QCD form or even reporting to us on a daily basis, that is dropping from a 93% down to 91 for the agencies, and from 81, it stays in line with the conventional. It goes from 81 down to 78. I think the other significant area is the residential construction. Mm-hmm. That lending value percent is currently sitting at 66%, and it will drop down to 63%.
Correct.
Not all of the other asset categories. A number of the other asset categories are experiencing maybe a 1 or 2% lower value. Mm-hmm. But we'd spend the rest of the day on that. There was a full list that went out with the notification. That goes out to to the president and all of the QCD contacts. Mm-hmm. Kind of highlights the changes that are being adopted, and it also gave you all of the breakdown of the lending value changes.
And that can be found on our website under the news section if you did not receive that email or would like to go check it out.
Great. Okay.
So additional changes that we had, specifically to the underwriting requirement update. For securities, we didn't have any changes.
No.
So that's nice. For the loans, we had a couple of changes. So additionally, in the conventional mortgages for 1 to 4 family properties, we added language that discusses single close construction to permanent loans. And the reason why we added that was simply because before we had a term limitation of 360 months, 30 years. Mm-hmm. And for most single close construction to permanent loans, that's typically a 1-year interest only term, and then you have your full 30-year term after. And so that would kick out all of those loans.
Right.
Because they exceeded the 360 months. So the term will begin with the first payment date or the conversion date, however you define it, to the maturity date. So it's not going to count that first 12-month or 18-month period.
So Yeah, we're hoping that this will add to that pool of collateral now available to you.
Exactly. And then for the residential construction mortgages, we changed a few things in there, again, just trying to adapt to the market and what we see people doing. So we added that there's no negative amortization. That was always our expectation, but I just don't know that we clarified it in the guidelines. It does require at least an interest only, or sometimes we've seen principal payments for construction mortgages. Additionally, the initial advance period is set to 12 months with the total term not to exceed 18 months. And we previously had it, I believe, at 24 months as the term, and we also aligned the multifamily and commercial to 24 months, and we really felt like, just given what we've seen in the marketplace, typically for residential homes, it does not take a full 2 years to construct that property, and so we tried to align with the market. And then we also would require at least one credit review during that 18-month term. So the different agreement types that we have, we're just going to walk through those real quick. Our blanket pledge members, these are our typical banks, thrifts, credit unions. They execute an advanced pledge and security agreement blanket pledge. The reason why we call it a blanket pledge is that we are able, actually through that agreement, to file a UCC filing that provides us with a blanket list. So, list of collateral. That means that we have access to all of the assets, or sort of like when you take a blanket pledge on blanket collateral on your operating lines, or however you do that, or on your equipment, we also do something similar. We have sort of a blanket lien over an institution. We do allow reporting of loan collateral via the QCD form, and that is updated quarterly. The blanket lending value column is used in the Schedule of Eligible Collateral, and so you can see when you pull out the Member Products and Services Guide, specifically the Schedule of Eligible Collateral, it is broken down by type as to which lending value you would receive, and so you always want to follow that blanket QCD lending value. If delivery is required for our blanket pledge members, then you use the Collateral Loan Listing Limited template. And to be very honest with you, this is almost everybody. It's obviously on the screen. 96% of our members report collateral to us via the blanket pledge. Specific pledge, then, on the other hand, they also execute an advanced pledge and security agreement, but it is specific pledge or housing associate. So for specific pledge members, that would be our insurance companies and our non-depository CDFIs or our housing associates. They actually are unable to sign those agreements based on, like, for example, insurance company, they're policyholders. So they cannot legally sign a blanket pledge because of the structure of their business. When they deliver loans to us, so any loans that they have, they must deliver. The QCD is not an option for specific pledge members. They have to deliver via the expanded loan listing, and the column that we use for them is under the delivered expanded lending value column in the Schedule of Eligible Collateral. We have both Class A and Class B. For Class A, you have insurance companies who are domiciled in the state that has exemptions for Federal Home Loan Bank. So in the event of an insurance company that has failed, the Federal Home Loan Bank has gone and received a special benefit from the 4 states in our district, where we are exempted from a stay, and so we are able to then make whole on our credit obligation. We can make ourselves whole. We can proceed with liquidating the collateral. Exactly. For Class B, those are for our non-depository CDFIs, our housing associates or insurance companies that are not domiciled in the state that has exemption. So there is a different approach that we take. There is more risk with those assets and with those members, and so that's why we differentiate the lending value that we provide. It really kind of ties back to that volatility factor. Instead of a shorter term turnaround time for us to liquidate, that can be extended for several months. So the volatility of those assets can change a lot more over a longer period of time. Exactly. Again, they have to use the Collateral Loan Listing Report expanded template to deliver loan collateral to us, and it's only 4% of our members. So for me, I always preach preparation when it comes to the QCD form. So I think any webinar you hear that we ever talk about this, we talk about preparation. First, you want to be well-versed in the Schedule of Eligible Collateral guidelines. You want to read them. You want to stay up to date on them. If changes have been made, you want to be aware of those, simply because they change all the time. I don't want to say all the time.
Right.
That's not really fair. That sounds terrible, right? They are subject to change.
Right.
If we have new regulation, if we have a new AB, if we're trying to clarify something, we could change it quarterly. We attempt to try to only keep those changes to the fall board meeting, which is why we then have the webinars to explain exactly what those larger changes have been. But I would keep an eye out for any news or anything that comes out. We did have a question that said, we do not receive emails notifying us of changes. How do we get on the email list? You would need to contact Kelly Tinsley, our membership coordinator, and identify as either the QCD contact, or I think you can have multiple QCD contacts.
Yeah, I think you can have up to 4.
Yes. And so if you're not receiving the updates on any changes to the Schedule of Eligible Collateral, I would encourage you to be on the QCD contact list. That's how you're going to get an email. Additionally, you want to identify critical reports. You know what your systems are capable of. We do not. And so you have to establish what reports you're going to use in order to pull down that information. You want to ensure then that the reports that you've created, those queries, that they're actually removing the ineligible loans. So you want to spot check those. If you said don't include Elaine's loan, you probably want to double check every now and again to make sure that it's not getting included. You want to keep your borrowing capacity and any future borrowing needs in mind. You don't want to just pledge collateral for today, but you want to make sure that you have enough for tomorrow too.
Not that you can't amend your form, but it's always best to just identify all eligible collateral and know what you want to have a plan. Yes.
And you want to submit your QCD form. The requirement is 45 days after quarter end. So we are on quarter end today.
Well,
we're 9:30, right?
No, 10/1.
Oh, tomorrow. Oh, today's 10/1. Yesterday was quarter end.
So now you all can go out online and fill out your 9:30 QCD form. The due date for this one is November 14th.
Excellent.
Because there are 31 days in October, so 45 business days after today takes us to November 14th. All right. So because 96% of our members report via the QCD form, that's really where we're going to spend the bulk of our time today. The new members-only portal was rolled out this year, so we wanted to take this opportunity to show you.
It's so pretty.
It is. We want to show you where to find it. So inside members only, if you go to the collateral menu option and the drop-down bar that comes down, or drop-down options, you'll want to select the QCD form. Once you do that, the page on the right is what you will see. The actual QCD form is that QCD Online. You can go to that. It will take you to a very familiar-looking QCD form. Again, the guidelines are here. If you're one of the few, we actually have probably 90% of our members fill it out online.
Yay.
So the other 10% of you who still, for
whatever reason.
prefer to do the hard copy, you'll find that option there as well. And you can print it out and fill it in and send it over to us, and we'll key it for you. But the guidelines are there. There is also a link for the Schedule of Eligible Collateral. So instead of taking you to the whole Member Products and Services Guide, it will take you directly to the meat of where you need to be for this. If you are, as I had mentioned earlier, you can always amend your form. So as of today, you will no longer be able to amend your 630 QCD form. But once you submit your 930 QCD form and you get a month down the road and you say, oh, gosh, I want to pledge more collateral. As long as you have that collateral on your books as of 930, because all of your data should always be as of that quarter end, As long as those loans were on your books as of 9/30, you can amend your 9/30 QCD form and add them or adjust as needed. But so you would come in the exact same way as you do when you're entering your QCD form the very first time.
And the reason, I'm just going to interrupt, I'm sorry, Elaine. The reason why you're not able to amend online anymore after the quarter end is that it's actually expecting you to fill out the new one.
Yes.
And so you don't really have access to the old one online anymore. If you needed to, for whatever reason, you weren't prepared to fill out your 9/30 QCD, but you still needed to amend your 6/30, you could do that. You would simply have to do it in paper form.
Right, and submit it to us, and we have the ability to go back and amend your 6/30 form.
Yes, so I know that's a little complicated, but the ease of doing it online is, hey, we're in the new quarter, fill out the new quarter one, as opposed to going backwards.
Right.
So just something to keep in mind there.
Absolutely. Thank you. So we're going to proceed like we're going to fill out the new QCD form. So 10-1, we're going to open and submit the 9/30 QCD form. This screen should be very familiar. This piece did not change. On here, some basic instructions, your online entry form, and it will give you the status of your form. So in my example, I've chosen one that somebody had already started, but it hadn't been submitted yet, so it just says it's in progress. So you'll want to select the online form. It will open it up to the very first of 5 tabs. The first tab is for all of your unrestricted collateral. This is your 1-to-4s, your multifamily, your held for sale, your government guaranteed, FHA, VA loans, as well as any SBA certificates that you've delivered to the bank for as collateral. So on this, to open the page up for data entry, you have to enter your asset total. And this is what your asset total will be that you're going to put on your 9/30 call report, because we do match that up. We talk about that in our collateral verification webinars. But so this is your 9/30 total assets. This is imperative because it drives the amount of held for sale loans that you can pledge on this form, limits it to 15% of your assets. And then when we get to the restricted assets, it caps it at 25% of your assets for any restricted collateral. So on this form, you'll enter your asset total. And so you go back to those reports that Kylie talked about, all of those loans that show your eligible collateral. So you've got 50 loans with an unpaid principal balance of $1.5 million. You're going to want to put that number of loans and the aggregate unpaid principal balance in the appropriate asset type. The form will then calculate the lending value based upon the percentage that you see in that second to the left, second to the right hand column. So for each of the asset categories, you put your total number of loans, your unpaid principal balance. If they're the FHA or VA loans that are going to be greater than 90 days delinquent, the lending value is based on the guaranteed portion of those loans, so you'll need to put that guaranteed portion amount in that correct column. Again, your held for sale loans limited to 15% that you can report here. If you want to pledge more than your 15%, then we require daily reporting. We have just 3 or 4 members that utilize that option today, but then they get the volatility of their held for sale line. If you're doing that, it will pre-populate on the form for you what your held for sale balance was as of prior business day. Then if you've been approved from the Federal Home Loan Bank for a case-by-case collateral scenario, we would have provided you with the case-by-case number and the appropriate collateral type code that you will need to enter in that other section, down probably 2/3 of the way down the form. You'll enter the case-by-case number, the collateral, the 6-digit collateral code that we would have given you, and then again your unpaid principal balance, the number of loans, We would also provided you the lending value percent that you will need to enter into the form. So do that, and then the form will calculate the actual lending value for you. If you're pledging securities, today all securities are considered to be unrestricted collateral, so you can pledge as many of them as you want. The lending value will be populated on your form for you, be close of business the night prior, the prior business day. So in this case, this morning, if you pulled up your QCD form, your lending value as of 9:30 would be populated on your QCD form for you. All right, and then it will sum the total amount of unrestricted collateral that you have entered up above, plus your held for sale and securities. So, oh gosh, the important feature here, online help function. Those little blue circles onto the far right-hand column of the page, if you hover over those, hover your cursor over those, it will pop up all of the the underwriting guidelines for that particular asset category. So it's available at your fingertips. I mean, really, just hover over it. It's got all of the underwriting guidelines listed. Mm-hmm. All right. Moving on to the second tab, this is the restricted collateral tab. You're going to be limited to 25% of your assets. That's the value you entered on the prior tab, unless you've requested for a special consideration for a higher amount, but that would have to be pre-approved. Again, you'll enter the number of loans for each of the asset categories that qualify and the aggregate unpaid principal balance. This is your ag loans, commercials, seconds, and HELOCs. Any construction loans, the residential, commercial, and multifamily. Again, total number of loans, aggregate unpaid principal balance. Again, there's room for the case-by-case numbers. If you've been, have special approval for the arrangement on what is considered restricted collateral, again, we would tell you whether it goes on the front page or the first tab or the second. You would enter the case-by-case number, the collateral code, number of loans, unpaid principal balance. If your institution is considered to be a community financial institution, you're allowed to pledge your operating loans and your equipment loans. The definition of an CFI institution is an FDIC-insured institution whose assets over the past 3 years averaged less than $1.199 billion. So the majority of our members fall into this category. Okay.
When do they update that, Elaine?
They update the CFI cap every January for that coming year, for that year. Then if ever we were to go back to having any restricted or any securities considered to be restricted, it would populate there for you. Again, you have all of your online help function available. It will sum at the very bottom your total restricted collateral. It also tells you what the calculated cap of restricted assets that you can pledge. If you look at the very top right, there's a 0 there today. But once you enter your asset amount, that restricted cap is populated based upon that amount that you entered. So if you move on to the additional information page tab, if on questions 1 or 4 you enter a yes, the form will require you to enter an affiliate or the entity name. So this is servicer, custodian servicers are questions 2 and 3. Those will be pre-populated for you if you've told us in the past that you're utilizing either a servicer or custodian, different than yourself. They will be listed, so we'll ask you to review that, and you will have to certify, is this correct, yes or no. Question number 5, has your institution experienced a material adverse change in the past 3 months? Yes or no? But all of that information, all of these questions have to be answered before you can even leave this page. If you're like trying to go back to the first tab, it won't let you out of here until you actually respond to each of those questions. If you have any comments that you want to add, so you don't agree with the servicers that are listed there, you would say, no, this is not correct. And in the additional comments box, you would need to put why that is not correct, whether we need to add a new institution or a new entity, or whether we need to remove one. It's no longer valid. And then we will follow up with you once your form is submitted. The collateral summary tab, the 4th one, really just summarizes all of the information that you have populated in the previous tabs. It will give you your values as of today, using yesterday's credit obligation totals, yesterday's close of business securities totals, or the daily held for sale reporting. It will give you those values as of today, and it will also give you those values as of true quarter end. So today, they would look like one and the same because
it was yesterday.
Yeah, it's just yesterday. But tomorrow, those could be very different values based upon your security activity.
Right. Well, on November 14th, that may look very different.
Yes, yes. So you have a good idea of where you were at both today and quarter end. It will show you what your collateral restricted capacity is and what is excess. What room do you have yet to pledge of those restricted assets? It will give you your outstanding credit obligations, again, as of quarter end and as of close business last night. This then gives you your excess collateral balance. You cannot submit your form if you don't have adequate collateral to support your outstanding credit obligations from prior business day. So if you're only reporting $1 million on your collateral and your credit obligations were $1.5 million, you couldn't submit this form. It would give you an error message. Excuse me. So we're on the very last tab. This is the submissions tab. But before you submit, you want to make sure that you've entered everything correctly. You've got enough adequate collateral pledged. You'll want to read through the certification, and hopefully you'll agree. But you have to select the I agree. If you want any comments that are going to go with your QCD form that's going to move on to your approver, you would put them here. You'll have to hit the Save button and then Submit. Once you hit Submit, there is an email that is generated to all of those individuals at your institution that have been set up as an approver. So there are two roles for this QCD application. One is a data entry and one is an approver. Always going to be a two-step process. Even if you are the data entry person and the approver, if you're both, when you submit your form, you'll need to log out, log back in 10, 15 minutes later, and you'll have to go in and kind of do the same steps and approve the form. At that point, that's when it comes over to us for review at Federal Home Loan Bank. Always, always, always two-step process. I stress that because we've had every quarter
usually the hang-up.
It is. And we start making phone calls probably a couple of days ahead of cutoff time because we can see it sitting in a submitted status but not yet approved. And if you've sat there for several days, it might be just because it was forgotten.
Right.
So what happens once you submit that and it's approved? It usually goes straight through and updates your collateral capacity, all probably within 15 minutes. So you submit your form, you want to borrow on it later on today. You update your form at 1 o'clock, you come in at 2:30, your collateral should be updated well before then. The only time it would stop for my staff to review is if you've answered yes to questions 1, 4, and 5, or you've got a loan listing requirement due to maybe a collateral verification or financial something going on. If you put anything in any of those other boxes, so if you're going to enter some case-by-case loans that you've been approved for, we'll stop it, make sure that you've got all of the data entered correctly, the appropriate type code, appropriate lending value percents, make sure that it's all,
that you're approved to do that.
Approved, absolutely. And then we'll review it. We monitor those queues all day long. We'll approve it and send it on its way. It will update your borrowing capacity again intraday. Anytime you put anything in the comments section, so if there's something not right with your servicer and custodian, you're having us update for whatever reason, it will stop, obviously, so we can see that information, and we'll approve it and then follow up with you on any of the necessary documents required.
That's not, though, the comments from the submitter to the approver.
That is
right?
correct.
Because those get cleared out when the approver submits it.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So, common issues that we encounter. We've gotten phone calls, hey, I can't put any information. It's broken.
It's gray. It won't let me.
It's probably because you haven't entered anything in the assets amount, because there are so many requirements imposed on that amount that you put in there. We just start off with that. So your form will open as soon as you enter your asset value. You can't submit the form if you don't have enough collateral pledged. And that is as of current day. So what your obligations were last night plus your collateral that you're pledging today. Again, the biggest one is the submitter versus the approver. It's a two-step process. It's delegation of authority, segregation of duty. Most institutions require that. That's how we built that in to accommodate that. So another asset type, so we've kind of been through how to report your loans that you hold at your institution. We're going to talk a few minutes about pledging and releasing securities that are held in safekeeping at the Federal Home Loan Bank of Topeka. There is a collateral activity report, which we refer to it as a CAR. It's out on our members only page. You'll fill that out. You'll send that to us with all of the pertinent information. We'll update your borrowing capacity, and you're eligible to borrow if you're increasing. You're eligible to borrow on that same day, 15, 20 minutes. Even though a security that is pledged, that is called or matured or pays off, we still ask that you submit the collateral activity report, because then that allows us to release the payment for that final pay that you've gotten for the principal amount. It's just prudent record keeping from our side, that you're actually just releasing your interest in that.
And I think the one there listed on the bottom line, to release the security, you have to have adequate collateral.
Absolutely. That's key. If you do not have adequate collateral remaining, once we release that security, we cannot release it. Actually, it's a system limitation. That's a control built into our collateral application. This is what the collateral activity report looks like. Today, unfortunately, it's not a fillable PDF, but that's hopefully where we're going to go here sometime this year. You'll fill in your institution's CUST ID, your name, city, state, date. In the securities activity section, there is a drop-down on the pledge or release column. You'll select either whether you're pledging or releasing a security. Enter the security details. The form has to be signed by an authorized individual that is listed on the credit authorization or the credit resolution that we have on file today. And we do check that back to those agreements to make sure that you are authorized. Then you'll send it in to us for processing. We do allow some of our institutions to utilize an approved third-party custodian to pledge securities to us. This would require fully executed agreements to be in place prior to pledging. It's a formal request to use a specific institution. There's a little bit of paperwork that has to be filled out. The security, it has to be in your possession before you can pledge it in your custody account. You're going to complete an Exhibit A of that third-party custodial agreement. We do have requirements on the custodian that they would send a pledge receipt. So you're going to notify me and your custodian that you want to pledge security 123. Your custodian will restrict the movement and issue a joint custody receipt, some type of pledge receipt. They will then send it to us directly and say, we've done this on your behalf. We'll match up all of the details. We'll enter that information into our collateral and safekeeping applications as a held elsewhere. That's how we monitor for all the MBS CMOs, we upload factors, pricing, all of that information, and that's where your lending value is derived. The custodian cannot release that security or its proceeds from the final payment without prior consent from us. And what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that you have adequate collateral first if we were to release that security. As long as you have adequate collateral remaining, we will sign the release and we will send that over to your custodian for processing. But until then, they are supposed to hold on to that security or its proceeds. The bank also has to provide us a monthly statement with a listing of all of those securities that are pledged to us on your behalf. Again, an Exhibit A is required even for those securities that are matured, paid off, called, and your custodian should not release those funds until we've actually signed off on that. This is an example of the Exhibit A, very basic. You're going to enter your custodian's name, your name, the date of that custodial agreement that we have on file between the three of us. You'll have the same drop-down options, pledge or release, enter your security details. Again, this has to be signed by an authorized individual that's listed on that credit authorization or credit resolution form we have on file. You'll send a copy of this to your custodian, and then you'll send a copy of that to us as well. That way we know that we're waiting for a pledge receipt from your custodian, and we can anticipate that. If we don't get it, then we will call you and say, hey, we never received anything from your custodian. So it just helps the process go a little bit smoother. Okay. For all of our securities that are pledged to us as collateral, anything that we hold in safekeeping, we do a daily reconcilement with our custodian just to make sure that we're always in check. We will upload pricing from our security vendors every day. We upload factors on all of those private label and CMBS securities that are pledged to us. We pull in ratings from Moody's, Fitch, and S&P because there's rating requirements on those. And we also do that monthly reconciliation from our application, what we have on our records, does it match the custodian that you're utilizing? We'll do that reconciliation every month. We also accept cash, basically. It's collateral, right? But they have to be in your overnight deposit account before we can actually pledge those. So if you want to utilize that, or you're pledging the Federal Home Loan Bank CDs that you can purchase through our member products, lending desk, you can pledge those as collateral. The overnight deposit section and the CDs are down towards the bottom. You'll need to tell us if you want us to move the money from your demand to your overnights if you're pledging, or vice versa. If you're releasing, we're going to have them in your pledged overnight account. Do you want them to sit in your unencumbered overnight account, or do you want them back in your demand account? The default is it's going to sit in your unencumbered pledge overnight or unencumbered overnight account. So if you don't tell us otherwise, that's what we're going to do. But we can also move them back to your DDA if you need those funds. Again, it has to be signed by an authorized individual, and as long as adequate collateral will remain, we'll release those funds to you.
Okay.
Pledging delivered loans.
Well, we're going to give Elaine a little break. I'm going to talk to you guys about pledging delivered loans. So in the event that you have to deliver loans to us, either you're a specific pledge member and you have to, if you want to pledge loan collateral, you have to deliver them, or if you are a blanket pledge member and there is financial deterioration in your organization, then we also might require delivery. So first and foremost, you complete the appropriate collateral loan listing template. We talked a little bit earlier for our specific pledge members, that's the expanded template. For our blanket pledge members, that is the limited template. You would send that template to us via a secure method. So we have Proofpoint. If you have a secure portal, essentially what it is data, loan data detail. And so you're going to list, you know, the 5 loans you want to deliver in, and you're going to identify all those data points in the collateral loan listing and populate that. Once you have that complete, you're going to submit that form to us. Once we receive the form, we're also going to expect, if you listed 5 loans on that collateral loan listing report, we're going to expect for you to send loan documents for 5 loans. So we're going to first reconcile and make sure that those 2 things balance and make sense. You said 5 loans over here. Did we get those same 5 loans? And then if they do reconcile, then we're going to upload that information into our collateral system. And then we're going to pass that information over to the collateral review officers to review each file for eligibility. If the loan is determined to be eligible, the lending value will be assigned and your borrowing capacity will be updated. If it is ineligible, then we will identify an exception for that loan. It's missing the appraisal. The mortgage was not recorded properly. Whatever the exception is, we're going to identify what that exception is, and we're going to key that into our system. And then every day that exception report is updated and will detail the issues for you, which is the report is available on our members-only site.
Yes.
Okay. Additionally, this is one caveat to delivery that's different for delivery than for QCD reporting. There are no restricted assets on delivery.
Restricted,
right? There's no restricted assets on delivery, so it's not applicable. The limitation is not applicable. So the reason for that is because of that very detailed loan-by-loan review that we're doing, we don't feel that the restriction is required on delivery. So for the collateral loan listing expanded template, again, this is very few of our members, but it is required for all specific pledge members desiring to pledge loan collateral to us. It is optional for all of our other members. If you chose to do that, you certainly could. The market value on the expanded template is determined by taking either the lesser of the unpaid principal balance or the loan value as determined by a third-party pricing vendor. The member is charged, so we do charge you for that quarterly pricing fee. I believe it is $40 per loan quarterly. All data points on the collateral loan listing are required. I believe on the expanded template there's somewhere around 130 fields that would be required for loans pledged via the expanded template. Additionally, the template is located on members only under the collateral, and then you go to the form section. Updated loan information is required within 5 business days after each month end. So we actually, on the expanded template, require monthly updating. So it's a little bit different than what most of our members are used to.
That is correct.
As I mentioned, for our blanket pledge members, in the event that delivery of loans is required, we would follow a very similar practice. The limited template is used by all of our members on delivery except for the specific pledge, non-depository CDFIs, and housing associates. The market value is calculated a little bit differently because we have loan data detail. So we have a little more granular as opposed to the aggregate level that we have on the QCD. So it is based on either the lesser of the unpaid principal balance, the present value calculation of future cash flows at current market rates, or the loan value as determined by a third-party pricing vendor if it were obtained.
And today we do not send those out.
Right. So delivered unlimited, we do not send out to a pricing vendor.
We do every quarter. It's not through quarter ends, but we do on the
expanded.
Yes. Specific.
Members are to complete as many data points as possible. So for expanded, you had to do it, and there's 130. On limited, there's
62.
64, yeah, 62, 64, somewhere around in there. We ask that you complete as much as you can. Whatever you're unable to populate from your systems, we will fill in during our review of those loans. The template is also located on members only under the form section. And this one is very similar to the QCD form where you update it every quarter end. However, you only get 30 days instead of 45 days on the QCD.
That is correct. All right, so if you wanted to release the collateral that's been delivered to us, loan collateral, like anything else, we have a form for that. Or, really if it works out better for you just to send us an email with the basic information so we can identify the loan, we're happy to release based upon that information too. But this form is out on the members-only website under the forms. If adequate collateral remains as all of the other categories, we'll release that loan. We will send it back to you via Federal Express unless you specify otherwise. And if you have a different address than what we have on file for you, please let us know here. There's a box down at the bottom. Tell us where you want those loans sent. Okay. All right, so the form section. So we've talked.
We told you where to find them. We just are now showing you, right?
Correct. So you go to the collateral option, select form. Here lists all of the different forms that you have available at your fingertips. There's an explanation for each of the forms as if you were to scroll down on that page. Really pretty self-explanatory. So there's all your templates, your collateral activity report. Should have everything you need in this one section. So reports, we're down to the last 5 minutes or so. I think we're going to make it.
Awesome.
So in the reports, again, it's
Elaine loves reports. I should just tell you that.
Especially this one that we're going to go over. So you're going to find it under the collateral option, go down to the very bottom option under reports. It will bring you up to the screen that you see on your far right-hand side. If you're reporting via the expanded template or the limited template, that collateral load and listing report, you can download into Excel all of the information that we have on file. So for your monthly or quarterly reporting, you can use this report and only then update what you have to do. So your unpaid.
We encourage you to do that.
Absolutely. So your unpaid principal balance. Did you modify the loan at all?
Maturity date.
What did you change?
Right.
Maturity date, interest rate, what? So update that. But we provide all of that information that we have on file. If you have any delivered loans with us, you can get a full listing of everything that we have. Member collateral summary. This is my favorite. We're going to talk about that. I'm going to show it to you in detail because it's my favorite. Absolutely. Kylie talked about the member loan exception report. So if you've got delivered loans that aren't getting lending value, you can pull this report and look at it, and it will tell you why it's not eligible. Again, if you're pledging securities, this gives you a nice list of all of those securities that you have pledged. It will show you the unpaid principal balance, the market value, and the lending value associated with each QCIP that you have pledged. All right.
Oh, there they are.
There they are. This will give you, just for your reference later down the road. The member collateral summary report. Again, like I said, it's my favorite. because this tells us, this is everything that we know about you in a single report. Here's all of your collateral information and your credit obligation information. We break it out by unrestricted, restricted categories. You know, what's your total collateral required? What's your intraday? Excess collateral, what's your collateral ratio? And do you have any pending loans? Do you have anything ineligible? You know, it will show you all on this very first page. Yay. The second page of this is all of the other stuff, right? What kind of agreement type do you have? Your reporting method, are you on blanket or are you on delivery? Your CFI status, are you yes or no?
Have you had a collateral verification before?
Oh, yeah, and breakdown of your obligations as of close of business the day prior. You know, like I say, all of the information that we know about you is here. Your stock values breaks it out by class A and B. This is all of your eligible security values. So broken down by asset groups, collateral types. Mm-hmm. And it will show you the unpaid. So you have 5 loans or 5 securities that total $3 million. Here's the market value. Here's the lending value that are associated with those 3. Mm-hmm. Any loan collateral that you have pledged either on your QCD form or delivered by asset group. Mm-hmm. The collateral type code is grouped in that first, in those categories. If you had any ineligible securities or loans, they will show up on that report. The next one is, this last page is anything pending. So you can see where we're at in that process. Mm-hmm. The very last page is the legend. What do those assets, those collateral type codes mean? We tried to make them make sense, right? So ONDX is overnight deposit, your agencies, mm-hmm. that type. So it's hopefully a little more intuitive than just a number. But again, it's my favorite report because it tells you everything that we know.
And Elaine loves detail.
Oh, man. I live in the details. Can't help it. All right. We have made it to our Q&A section. We are, like, right on time today.
We did good.
We did good.
There have not been any questions throughout the process, but we certainly would welcome you to ask any now. I'm not seeing any pop up, so we'll go ahead and move forward with just a couple more things, but please feel free to ask any questions as we walk through these, and we'll circle back. So additional educational opportunities. I always promote our annual management conference, number one, because it's amazing. Mm-hmm. I love going. It's very educational. It's a great place for networking. Try to have a little bit of fun, too.
And they don't pay her to say that.
They don't. No, I really do like it. Additionally, we have our regional meetings. We had one yesterday in Omaha. So typically those are August through October. And we break those up in our 4-state district.
We have one more coming up in Oklahoma.
Yes, in October. Additionally, if you need any one-on-one guidance for anything relating to reporting or collateral review, certainly reach out to us. And we will provide you with that one-on-one guidance and walk you through.
We want you to be successful. We're here for you.
Absolutely. So. And then also other webinars at the bank. We have a lot of different departments, lending and our AHP, HSP for
housing.
For our housing, letter of credit and MPF. Hey, Russ, you sent that to Elaine. Can you send it to me? I didn't get it. Oh, here we go. I think I got it. Let's see. Why is there a need for segregation between the submitter and approver? So we have some fairly large members who have segregation of duties, and even some of our smaller institutions who want to maintain a segregation of duties between, the person who is completing the form or compiling the numbers, and then the kind of the final sign-off.
The final review.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Or maybe it's just a delegation or that kind of thing. And so when we were establishing how the QCD form should work, the majority of our members wanted or requested that segregation of duties, and we agreed with them, right? Like, to have two eyes on it may be helpful.
Right.
And so that is the purpose behind having both the submitter and the approver role.
And to have the approver role, and I don't think I covered this earlier, to have that approver role, you have to be listed on that credit resolution or credit authorization that we have on file, where that won't even be an option for your admin when setting up privileges.
Yes. So thank you so much.
Yeah,
I appreciate
absolutely.
you sending that through, Russ.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
So here's us again.
Yay.
All of our contact information. We're here for you. We're here to help you. We want you to be successful. If we can answer questions, we can help educate, please give us a call.
Absolutely.
We have great staff that we get to work with every day that would love to be able to help you if you have questions.
Okay. I don't see any other questions coming through. So with that said, thank you so much for joining us for the webinar today. We really appreciate you taking time out of your schedules. If you have questions that you maybe just don't feel comfortable asking in front of everybody else, you call us anytime.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Or even send us an email.
And hopefully we see you tomorrow or Thursday.
I don't know that we actually see them.
Well, see in quotation marks.
Yeah, air quotes. Hope you will be able to join us tomorrow afternoon and Thursday.
Thank you so much, guys. Have a great day.